Okay, we are back in the studio. Quick travels today, and I am back in time to do what looks like it's going to be a highly anticipated 49ers salary cap show because there's a lot going on both above the surface of the water and under the surface of the water right now. We're anticipating some potential expenditures for the 49ers. We're anticipating some potential contract maneuvers for the 49ers. And I do have to say that they will be opening up some flexibility in just a couple of weeks. That's because on June 2nd, 18 million comes off of the books for Eric Armstead. They designated Eric Armstead for that post June 1st release, which means that you don't see the savings, the immediate savings, until after June 1st. So on June 2nd, the 49ers are going to have a whole lot more 2024 space. Now, I have to explain this. Off-season space is calculated differently than in-season space. Off-season space uses the top 51 rule, so only the 51 most valuable contracts are going to count against the salary cap. As we speak right now, the 49ers have $6.2 million in salary cap space open for off-season maneuverings with that top 51 rule. As soon as June 2nd hits, that 18 million is going to come in thanks to the Eric Armstead money, freeing up some of it pushed back. That's what the post June 1st designation does. You absorb the cap hit in the at least 50% of it in the second year. Well, once that opens up, you add 18 million to 6.2 million, and you're going to have $24.2 million in salary cap space. That being said, it's important to calculate things according to the in-season scale. And my salary cap sheet, that's what it's for. It's for the in-season scale. Once the 49ers cut down their roster, the top, all 53 that make the roster are going to count. The entire practice squad is going to count. Everybody on injured reserve is going to count. Everybody on PUP is going to count. So I have those calculations projected here. And with those calculations, I project the 49ers will currently have $14 million of in-season salary cap space for 2024. So that 24.2 million number, that's a little large. You have to remember that the practice squad and the 53-man roster is typically going to be a little bit more expensive because you're no longer adhering to that top 51 rule. That ceases to be in effect at the end of August, at the start of September, when they cut down to 53 players. So I think it's really smart to look at things as far as a projection moving forward. That's what I do here. I project the 53-man roster for the 49ers, and as I projected on this sheet, and if you want to follow this sheet, I'm going to copy and paste the link. I'm going to toss it into the comments section right now, so you can go ahead and check it out. As I project this 53-man roster, I am able to project how much it is going to cost the 49ers to field. So you go through it position by position. They don't have to have the QB3 on the 53 this year. They can call up the emergency quarterback from the practice squad. So Purdy and Dobbs making it out of the 53-man roster. It's a $3.3 million cap hit for the quarterbacks, which is minuscule compared to what I project to be a $44.5 million cap hit for the defensive linemen. Somebody was wondering earlier why Dre Greenlaw's not on here. It's because he's projected to be on PUP at the start of the season. His number still counts against the list, but it's down here because he's not going to count against the 53. But his salary cap number will still count. Then I've got the practice squad. I've already slotted in 16 salaries, so those are counting. That's part of the estimate, but I don't really have 16 names. I don't know how this is going to shake out, but I've got an inkling that Brandon Allen, that third quarterback, is going to be a practice squad guy this year, and maybe somebody like Trent Taylor gets that veteran practice squad salary, which would be about $370,000 per year. Anyway, $14 million of in-season space. This is after the Armstead savings, after all of that. So that's where the 49ers stand right now. They are not in dire financial straits. They have money to work with, but we have to look at everything in terms of the bigger picture. The carryover for Brock Purdy's mega deal. Back to this sheet, you could toggle on the bottom to 2025, And in 2025, the 49ers are going to need to have some space, and especially beyond 2025, they're going to need to have some space if they're going to pay Brock Purdy the amount of money that we think Brock Purdy is going to make. Of course, they can backload the deal, but this is what I always say. I always compare the salary cap to a series of sinks filling up with water. You've got your 2024 sink right here. You've got your 2025 sink right here. At no point can you overflow in any given sink. There's going to be a 2026 sink, a 2027 sink, so on and so forth. Now, there are pipes connecting the sinks. So say that you restructure players to move cap hits forward. You're going to let some of the water out of the 2024 sink, and you're going to pour it into 2025 and beyond with a restructure. If you sign a new player in 2024, it's going to pour into 2024. If you signed to multiple years or you have some void years on the deal, it's going to also pour into 2025 and 2026. So it's about managing the water levels in each successive sink. Now, a lot of people will say, well, the cap's not real. Well, it's very real. It destroyed the 49ers of the late 1990s. We saw the Rams have to make some painful cuts and rebuild their team. The Saints have had to make some painful cuts. I mean, every single season we see teams have to make salary cap compromises, the 49ers included. They couldn't afford Eric Armstead at his number because he only played 13 games, or he missed 13 games over the past 2 seasons. So when you see these trade-offs happen, people will often say, well, why couldn't they have just restructured somebody? Why couldn't they have just moved some pieces around? Because even though the sink theory allows you to move water in between each sink and manage the water levels to a certain extent, too much spending at a certain point is going to overflow the sink anyway. Your pipe that is draining some of the water out of the 2024 sink or the 2025 sink or the 2026 sink is not going to have enough capacity to drain water fast enough. So then you just have to cut players and you have to take on painful losses to your football team. The 49ers are not in any danger of overflowing imminently, but when Brock Purdy does sign a mega deal, it's probably going to be after Brandon Aiyuk signs a very large contract as well. And it's going to have to be at least coinciding with several other players joining the team or signing contracts, because here, as you can see, in 2025, they currently only have 30 players under contract. So there's still a lot of spending to do. And based on my projected cap in 2025 of $280 million, I don't know what it's going to be. We'll have to wait and see what the NFL sets it as based on revenues here in 2024. They only have $22.3 million in space. So at the very least, what you see here is that the 49ers are going to have to be extremely creative with how they balance the books, how they manage things financially. And when we go back to the 2024 roster, you can see that they have so many star players. And that leads me to talk about fair compensation for all these players, because anybody at any given time can think that they're not being compensated fairly, and they can at the very least create some discomfort for the 49ers. One such player right now is Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk is currently not at the facility. These are all voluntary workouts. We saw him playing catch at some resort the other day. Somebody was throwing the football through a big tree and he was making the catch. But Brandon Aiyuk wants a new contract. Aiyuk is currently on the books for $14.1 million this year. Justin Jefferson, their talk that Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings will reach a deal that is going to be the most for any non-quarterback in NFL history, the star wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. Remember that Nick Bosa, the 49ers, currently owns the high water mark in APY, which is average per year for the most of any non-quarterback in NFL history, at 34 million APY. So if some of these rumors are true and Justin Jefferson is indeed pursuing a contract worth more than that, and he does get that, then it's probably going to be at 35 million APY or 34.1. Either way, APY is just a very general gauge of where these contracts are at. The fully guaranteed money is going to mean a whole lot more, but when we talk about a deal that it doesn't even exist yet, that we can't firmly analyze, it's really hard to go into such specifics. So we have to talk in the generalities of APY. Say that Jefferson signs for 35 million APY with a healthy set of guarantees. Bosa had a really, really healthy set of fully guaranteed money. There were not a lot of funny money in Nick Bosa's 34 million per year. Say that Jefferson signs for that. Where's Brandon Aiyuk going to be? I've never thought that Brandon Aiyuk would completely set the receiver market, but I have consistently thought that something approaching $30 million APY is possible. And I did also, and I still do believe that he's going to be very, very insistent on the guarantees being good in his deal, because that's what's really important. You could fluff up the APY every which way to Sunday, but getting real guaranteed cheddar in those deals, that's something that's much more valuable and much more indicative of a good contract. The good news for the 49ers is fully guaranteed money is distributed oftentimes through a signing bonus or through guaranteed option bonuses. And if that's the case, if you can do that, well, then you could amortize the cap hits over the years. This is why catch-rich teams do potentially have a benefit in the NFL. My projected Brandon Aiyuk contract looks like this. As you can see, I have $30 million in signing bonus money and another $20 million in guaranteed option bonus money, but it's stretched out like an accordion over 5 years for the signing bonus and then 5 additional years from 2025 for the option bonus. So I have been able to keep Brandon Aiyuk's cap hits at $8.1 million in 2024 with a new deal, and then $12.2 million in each of the next 2 seasons. You probably have noticed that $8.1 million this year would actually save the 49ers short-term money. It would go down from $14.1 million to $8.1 million because they've stretched out that cap hit. In that case, the 49ers would free up $24 million between Aiyuk and Armstead of 2024 space. In that case, you'd be looking at about $22 million of in-season salary cap space for 2024. Obviously, with the ability to carry it over to the sink of Brock Purdy in the future, the sink of the Brock Purdy mega deals, 2025 and beyond. So, yes, Justin Jefferson's going to set a high bar. I don't think that Brandon Aiyuk, though, is going to sign a deal that is worth as much as Justin Jefferson, simply because Jefferson, even though he's been hurt more than Brandon Aiyuk, maybe not as dependable, you can argue, but he's a sheer volume receiver. And that, at the end of the day, is going to mean something in all likelihood on the contract market. You know me, Brandon Aiyuk, and that efficiency is insanely good, which is why I do think that he is somebody who deserves top dollar or second top dollar. But I just don't think that the volume argument's going to come in at some point for Justin Jefferson, and that's going to push him to the top. And he reportedly wants that top non-QB money. This is what I mean about the efficiency. Look at Aiyuk and everyone else. Now, the volume, again, not quite as high, but because the 49ers have so many other weapons, it's not because they're a run-first team. I think they've actually morphed into a pass-first team, 109 pass attempts, 77 rush attempts in the playoffs. But it's more like Brandon Aiyuk is dealing with having to share the target load with so many other players on this 49ers roster. So we're going to have him up here in the upper right, but the volume for somebody like Justin Jefferson, more impressive. I don't even know where Justin is on here. I don't see him immediately. There's so many names, but he's somewhere in the cluster here. You want to be further to the right, further vertical. Separation grades on the x-axis. So Aiyuk is way over here. Only a few receivers with a better separation grade than him. And the catch point and the yak grade from PFF on the vertical axis. And look, I found Justin Jefferson. He's also an outlier kind of guy. Top right. He's not in this like very crowded cluster. Deebo Samuel's in a good spot, but he's in a more crowded cluster alongside Devontae Smith. Also got paid this offseason. Justin Jefferson, he's special. He's up here, but he hasn't been as special on a per snap basis as Brandon Aiyuk. But again, the volume for Jefferson has been greater. So we do expect him to probably top the market this offseason, and Aiyuk to have a really solid deal. I wouldn't compare them by APY. I'm going to compare them by fully guaranteed money when these deals do happen. And I do think that the 49ers can fit it while keyword lowering Brandon Aiyuk's cap impact this year. That leads me to the Christian McCaffrey contract dilemma. Now, we do not know if Christian McCaffrey wants more money or if he's demanding more money. Bobby Turner made a comment the other day, according to Jennifer Lee Chan of NBC Sports Bay Area, that he said something about the business aspect of it, and it might have inferred that Christian McCaffrey is not at OTAs because he's dealing with the business aspect of things. I talked about it briefly the other day. I said, let's not jump to any conclusions, and I'm still not jumping to any conclusions because Christian is scheduled to get married this offseason too, so his schedule can be a little bit busier than it normally is. With that being said, I do think that it is a good time to visit Christian McCaffrey's contract situation because and United Airlines is going to get a free advertisement here because they were they were the banner at the time when I took this screenshot from Over the Cap, and this is an ad for Over the Cap too. Good website, Over the Cap. Make sure you check him out. Christian McCaffrey is set to make $11.8 million this year in base salary. Now, this is how running back contracts in the NFL rank right now. Christian is still at the very top of the league. He signed this deal with Carolina about 4 years ago, and it's still the high water mark at $16 million per year. There was a fairly large signing bonus to this contract, which Carolina had to pay. The 49ers didn't have to deal with. So the 49ers are getting McCaffrey at about $12 million per year. 11.8 this year, 12 million next year, $200,000 workout bonus. If he doesn't show up to OTAs, he's not going to be eligible for that workout bonus. But 11.8 million is what McCaffrey, the 49ers are getting him at a discount, even though the signing bonus came earlier from Carolina to make that a $16 million deal. But if you look at 11.8, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'd be number 6 on this list. So the 49ers are paying Christian McCaffrey as the 6th highest running back in the NFL based on these contracts, with Carolina subsidizing the rest of the deal to move it to number 1. I don't think that this list right here is particularly relevant, though, to Christian McCaffrey's situation, because the running back market has been suppressed for so long, and the game is changing so drastically, right? And Christian McCaffrey has spearheaded that change. Running backs are playing receiver now. Christian McCaffrey is as big of a part of the 49ers pass game as anybody, as their wide receivers, as George Kittle, their tight end, who also is a really good receiver. I mean, and receivers, obviously, we're talking about Justin Jefferson at $35 million APY potentially. And then we look at McCaffrey's numbers, an $11.8 million base salary this year and $16 million with the full value of the deal based on how it was signed 4 years ago. And nobody's surpassed that yet. The fact that McCaffrey has an impact in the pass game, yet his salary is poised to be about a third of the top receivers in the league, even though I think you could really easily argue that he's just as valuable on that field to the 49ers offense as those receivers. I think we see a misbalance here, and I'm not saying anything revolutionary. People know that running backs have gotten the short end of the stick in the contract market, and you've seen teams try to squeeze as much receiving production out of running backs because they know that the running backs are capped by the lower franchise tag, and they could get a really good bargain out of that. The 49ers, though, have hit this really, really interesting inflection point where they're clearly in win now mode, where they have a ton of star players on this roster. I mean, they're just brimming with star power, right? And that win now mode is translated into this, I don't want to say desperation, but this let's get it done this year mentality, because you can combine all that with the fact that Brock Purdy is due to be paid in 2025. So Christian McCaffrey, approaching his late 20s now, at a position that obviously takes a whole lot of contact, has signed 2 contracts already in the NFL. He's going to want a third bite out of the apple. Christian has 2 years left on his current deal with the 49ers. 2025 and 2026. The 2027 is a void year after they restructured the contract to spread out some of the signing bonus. At some, either he takes tries to take that next bite out of the apple after this contract expires following the 2025 season, or the 49ers can reward Christian McCaffrey and allow him to take that next bite out of the apple a little bit sooner to account for a little bit of the disconnect that we see here. One of the most valuable players in football Yet he's making only $11.8 million in base salary this year. Still has the most valuable contract out of all the running backs, but he's doing a whole lot more than being a running back. Maybe it's a matter of 49ers kicking in some more guarantees because there's nothing guaranteed here for Christian McCaffrey in 2024 and 2025. Maybe it's a matter of not doing anything. Maybe Christian McCaffrey's okay with the deal as is. But when I look at the 49ers roster and I see inefficiencies as far as pay goes from the players' perspective, because I like talking about this from both the team's perspective and the players' perspective, because we're analyzing strategy from both sides. Yeah, Christian McCaffrey is underpaid relative to the value and the production that he is delivering. Somebody else that probably is underpaid, or at least has been offered a contract that isn't quite, doesn't have quite the monetary value to match what he's projected to give the team and what he's given the team, is Jauan Jennings. Now, but Jauan Jennings, he doesn't have a whole lot of recourse. He's a restricted free agent, which means that he can field offers from elsewhere, but the 49ers can match anything that he gets. And it doesn't look like he's gotten anything higher than he's gotten from the 49ers from elsewhere. 49ers have offered Jauan Jennings $4.9 million for this 2024 season, which is preset. That is the second round tender amount. Jennings, I don't know if it does Jauan a whole lot of good to sign the tender now, because just in case another offer, a bigger offer comes from elsewhere, he wants to remain potentially open to it. As soon as he signs the tender with the 49ers, he's locked in for 2024. He gives up any optionality. So for Jauan right now, it's a question of, okay, I want a long-term deal from the 49ers, or I want another team to offer me something that pressures the 49ers into giving me a long-term deal, like Brock Wright, the tight end for the Detroit Lions. So I'm going to stay back. I'm not going to sign this tender that the 49ers have offered me yet. The downside of that is that Jauan Jennings can't start practicing at OTAs until he signs that tender. It's different for Jauan, a veteran, than it is for Ricky Pearsall, a rookie who was able to sign a waiver even though he hasn't fully signed his deal yet. And for Pearsall, there's not any wiggle room as far as cap hit and amount of money that he's paid. Typically, these first-round picks who have fully guaranteed contracts offset language in case Pearsall's cut and signs with another team. How much do the 49ers owe in offset money? That's what agents and the team are haggling about right now. It took a little bit longer to sign Nick Bosa as well. So with Pearsall, he's going to make the amount of money that he's slotted for. Somebody like Jauan Jennings, well, that's also slotted money through the restricted free agent tender process. But until he signs that RFA tender, he's not locked in for that amount. He remains open, remains available for business in case that somebody comes offering with more money. But I mean, all of this between Aiyuk, that's going to be a big deal that I think the 49ers can save some cap space on. I think with Jauan Jennings, they might be able to save a little bit of 2024 space from $4.9 million in one lump sum for 1 year. Maybe they could spread out some money over 2 years or 3 years, give Jauan a little bit more security moving into the future. I don't know if they want to do that, but that's an option for the 49ers. To Christian McCaffrey, I mean, theoretically, if you're the 49ers, you can lower Christian McCaffrey's 2024 cap hit with something like a rework or an extension that ends up paying Christian McCaffrey more money. That is how the accordion of the salary cap works. And we talked about that in this Brandon Aiyuk contract proposal. You can give out a signing bonus now, reward a player for his good work, and then stretch out the cap hit over several seasons. So how the 49ers operate with this whole salary cap puzzle in mind over the course of the next couple months is going to be really, really interesting. We'll see if Christian McCaffrey shows up to OTAs at the next open practice on Wednesday. We'll see when Jauan Jennings signs his tender, if he does, or if the 49ers reach a long-term agreement with him. And we'll see when Brandon Aiyuk signs. I mean, as far as deadline pressure goes, there's not a whole lot of it on anybody right now. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, Jauan Jennings, and Brandon Aiyuk don't need to be at OTAs. These are players that are good players. I would say superstars in two cases, definitely with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Aiyuk. There's a lot of star power as well. Jauan Jennings, his stock has never been higher after his performance at the Super Bowl. All these guys, OTAs are not for them. OTAs are for younger players. They're voluntary. These guys don't need to be at OTAs. The 49ers don't need them to be at OTAs. Is it nice that Nick Bosa's there? Yes, of course. But as long as you got Bosa there on one side, Fred Warner there barking at people on the defensive side in street clothes as well, and then Kittle and Purdy on the offensive side with another leader like Kyle Juszczyk, you're good to go. The young guys can get the work done that they need at OTAs. It's training camp that starts in late July where you really, really would like to have these guys in the building. So that's why the start of training camp marks the first true inflection point of deadline pressure. If any of these situations are contractual situations, and obviously, by definition, Jauan Jennings' situation is a contractual one because he hasn't signed the tender yet. By definition, Brandon Aiyuk's situation is a contractual one because he wants a new deal, and he's talked about that, and they haven't reached an agreement yet. And we don't know what the deal with Christian McCaffrey is. It might be because Bobby Turner said it was a business issue, but we're not sure. And until we get to a point where there is that necessity to move by one side or the other, and it could be a very, I mean, it's not a firm deadline, as if the whole thing falls apart if people don't show up by training camp, as we saw with Nick Bosa last year. But it's a very encouraging deadline. The deadline's going to encourage the sides to come closer together once training camp starts. The very hard deadline, I would think, is week 1. That's what it was for Nick Bosa last year. He didn't want to start missing games because once you start missing games, you do also start missing a lot of money. And at the end of the day, Bosa said it really well. He said that, right, you got to be selfish because this industry is relentless when it comes to how it handles players, right? Their teams are always going to be looking to get better, regardless of whether you are part of those plans or not. So players, when the time is right, do have to look out for themselves, but the time will stop being right toward the end, especially toward the end of August, moving into September as that season opener approaches. And that's why typically you see these contract situations get resolved by that deadline pressure, with the looming importance of coalescing as a team, coming closer and closer to the windshield. So that's where we're at right now for the 49ers in this salary cap situation. $14 million in space for 2024, $6.2 million in offseason space will become $24 million as soon as Eric Armstead's $18 million frees up on June 2nd. Gives them a little bit more maneuverability, but again, carryover, unused salary cap space moves from season to season. Keeping in mind the sink theory and keeping as much room as possible open for Brock Purdy's deal, I think that is the absolute paramount, most important thing to remember right now. Yesterday, the 49ers assistant coaches spoke at the team facility. Matt Barrows and I teamed up on an article. Brian Greasy, Chris Kasarik, and 49ers assistants on Brock Purdy, Malik Mustafa, and more. So be sure to check that out. I'm going to take the link to that right now as well and go ahead and put it into the comment section. You could sign up for us at The Athletic and be ready for some of the deepest 49ers coverage that you'll see anywhere. So that was a good set of intel yesterday. I mean, the Malik Mustafa, Bob Sanders comparison from Daniel Bullocks, the 49ers DB coach, I thought was really good. Now, Bob Sanders played only like 50-something games in his NFL career because, I mean, this guy was a ball of muscle, hard hitter, violent, physical player. Played like a linebacker as far as the contact went, but also had the range necessary to play safety and play safety well. But I think that he did deal with health issues in his NFL career because of his style of play. The rules have changed since Bob Sanders started for the Colts, was a 2-time All-Pro for them. So the form tackling has to be better. You can't just be going in there crazy, leading with your head all the time. I'm not saying that's what Bob Sanders did, but the NFL has designed this to try to make it a little safer for players, to try to see if players will have a little bit more longevity. And Malik Mustafa is going to have to obviously adhere to those rules, continue tackling as well as he did in college, and find a way to port his physical style of play, that linebacker's body safety position style of play. He's going to have to figure out a way to translate that into some NFL longevity. 49ers definitely don't want him to only play about 50 games in his NFL career. But some of what we heard from Daniel Bullocks about Malik Mustafa showing up to the facility before him on a lot of days, I think that's going to be really exciting to 49ers fans. I mean, this is a guy who can blitz. This is a guy who I thought showed decent center field coverage ability at Wake Forest. The run stopping is probably the central thematic element of so many 49ers acquisitions this offseason. They brought in a lot of players who are good against the run. And for a team that dropped down to number 26 in run defense last year, it makes total sense that the 49ers are trying to plug that hole. All right, we're going to move this to 49ers Q&A. Margot, my wife, is not home yet, but there's food waiting for me when I got home. Really good food. So thank you to her. And she bought me a bunch of green machines. This is like my favorite supermarket drink. The green machine. They say that there's no sugar at it. I don't know if I believe them, but it's good. I need a green machine right now as we move to a 49ers Q&A. Smash that like button, Mike says. All right, green machine is open. This is the first time I'm looking at questions all day, so apologies if I've missed something. Who's Michael? Thanks, Mark, but who's Michael? Michael, I have a cousin. His name is Michael, but I'm not Michael. My name's David. I don't know. Does Christian McCaffrey want more money or not? I mean, I think everybody would want more, and I think he deserves more money. I think everybody looks at that, but end of the day, the situation is what it is until it is what it isn't. Right now, we don't know. We don't know anything about the situation beyond maybe one line from Bobby Turner. So we can't be sure about the Christian McCaffrey situation until there are more lines in the sand drawn. Will the training camp down in Irvine be open to the public? That's a question for the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are actually having training camp down in Irvine. So the Rams used to have training camp at UC Irvine up until this past year. The Rams are moving their training camp to Loyola Marymount University, which is in LA County, not in Orange County. So the facilities at UC Irvine, which are obviously adequate to host an NFL training camp, are open. So New Orleans Saints, just like the Dallas Cowboys, the team down in the South, deciding to hold their training camp in Southern California. The Cowboys are in Oxnard. That's northwest of LA. The New Orleans Saints, they're going to be in Orange County. They're going to be southeast of LA. And the 49ers are going to fly down there to John Wayne Airport to do a couple joint practices with the Saints. And then both teams are going to fly back up to the Bay Area to play a preseason game against each other on August 18th. Go for Broke says Spencer has a good question. No, the sync theory is from my own lecture. I made up the sync theory. Is this the good question that you're referring to? I'm not saying it's a bad question. I don't know. I just want to make sure I answer the good question. I like to answer questions of people that watch the show a lot. Pop quiz. Which NFL stadium has hosted the most NFC championship games? That would be Candlestick Park, which doesn't exist anymore. I hope I'm right. I was right. I was right up until this past year, I think. I don't think that's changed since Levi Stadium hosted the NFC championship game this past season. I got it right. Candlestick Park 8 times. So Levi's has already hosted 2 NFC championship games. 6 to go to catch Candlestick. The burrito of a couple nights ago. Oh, the one in North Beach. That was good. Yeah, the one in North Beach was good. I think it was called Cilantro Taqueria. It was solid. If you're on that side of town, I know El Farolito opened one up on Grant in North Beach. So it's right there by the Showdown, that bar, the Showdown. It used to be in the House. That location in North Beach used to be called the House. That was an Asian fusion restaurant that was really good. But anyway, if you're on that side of town, you can go to El Farolito down further into the heart of North Beach, or if you're closer to the wharf and you want a good burrito, Cilantro is solid. I still think that your best bet, if you want the very best burritos, to go to Taqueria Cancun. But sometimes people don't want to cross the entire city to head down to the Mission. So I had to stay up north, and it was good. Then I had another good burrito last night in San Mateo at a place called Charlie's Taqueria. Cilantro Taqueria. Yes, sir. Yes, the 49ers rolled over something like 30 million from last season, and they're set to roll over more money this year as well. Ooh, we got a breakfast burrito recommendation for Sacramento, Il Canto in the financial district. All right, those of you watching in Sacramento, go ahead and check it out. I'm going to try to get you guys some more sandwich burrito content that I actually filmed that I haven't been able to process yet. I've got a few days now in the studio here over Memorial Day weekend where we'll be able to pump out some good content. We'll be able to go through some of that before I start traveling again. I'll have to be back at OTA practice for the 49ers with a surprise stop before then, but that's next Wednesday is the next OTA practice. So we'll be able to get caught up on some of these recommendations. Yesterday, I made what might have been the foolish promise. Those of you who weren't watching yesterday, you'll know now. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl, the plan is, and it's kind of a guarantee, I guess, at this point, and I can't back off of a guarantee because no true man is going to back off of his guarantee. If the 49ers win the Super Bowl, we're going to live stream me swimming without a wetsuit from Alcatraz back to the city in February, in the icy water in February. Maybe on the morning of the 49ers parade. I didn't guarantee that much, though, because I don't know when the parade would start. So maybe the day before. But anyway, that's the latest announcement. So you guys get to see the jersey, the reveal of 17, and you'll get to see that. Mike said that he's going to be on the boat live streaming it, by the way. Yep. Look, great minds think alike. Yeah. Yeah, Michael. Why did your E turn into a 3? Live. Look, Mike fixing his spelling error. Mike being proper, as he always is. That's awesome. You watch the videos at every lunch break. So I try, this is interesting to me. Everybody, you can answer in the chat section right now. Do people like, I'll give you 3 options. Do you like super short videos? I'm not talking shorts. I'm talking about 2 to 3 minute videos. Or do you like medium length videos? I'm talking 8 to 12 minute videos. Or do you like these lives, which I typically keep from 45 minutes to 1 hour? So option A, do you like the 2 to 3 minute videos? Option B, do you like the mid-length videos, 8 to 12 minutes? Option C, do you like the longest ones, 45 to 60 minutes? I'm not going to change what I do because I give you a mix of all, because I know that we're going to get different answers from different people because people have different schedules and different preferences. I could already see that we're getting different answers here. Yeah, I already see one. I love the live streams, which are long. I see the mediums. I see option B and C from Go for Baroque. Actually, not a lot of people are saying A, which is interesting to me, but I do have to do short videos every once in a while because I just don't have time and I need to give a quick update. So sometimes the short videos won't stop because the short videos are sometimes all I can do, and you do have to get the update up. So it's cool to see that people like the medium and the long form stuff, because that's actually the stuff that takes the most work, right? Because I have to actually sit here and talk for a really long time. A lot of people like the walk and talk scenic videos. That's awesome. Here we go. Now we have a short and concise fan right now. We have a fan of all formats. Thank you. Walk and talk is good. We'll have to use the gimbal more for walk and talk to keep it as stable as possible. When I record a walk and talk, the iPhone has an automatic stabilizer, so it stays smooth. When you do it live and you're on YouTube live, it doesn't have the automatic stabilizer. So the gimbal helps, but it definitely is a little bit shaky. Cool. All right. I'm glad that you guys have delivered some of your. I'm glad you guys have delivered some of your thoughts. Do I not have an opinion? I already gave you my opinion on McCaffrey's contract. I think that he's obviously not making as much money as the production and the value that he's bringing the 49ers, but that's where the running back market is. It's tough. The tight end market suffered something similar, and it probably still does with a player like George Kittle. It's capped at a certain spot because the franchise tag for that position is rather low. So McCaffrey's in between a rock and a hard place, but the league is evolving, and he's also probably in a place where he's got more leverage than ever over the 49ers than he'll ever have to try to get that third bite out of the apple, because he's so important to a team in a win now year. Like the team needs Christian McCaffrey. He's one of the superstars that's really vital to what they're doing. So maybe now is the best time to shoot for uh, an increase in compensation, or a more favorable look at the terms of his contract. I just don't know where both sides currently stand right now. I'm just looking at this from the outside, and I think I've already shared my opinion over several minutes today. Any thoughts on Feliciano taking center duties for the time being, and could that carry into the season? Well, Feliciano played center for the Giants a couple of years ago, started all season. Jake Brendel has got that knee tendonitis, so he is out, I think, probably through OTAs. I thought that Brendel was a whole lot better in his first season starting than he was in his second season starting. I think they've struggled with interior anchor with Jake Brendel, who's exceptionally athletic, but the weakness of his game has been the anchor and the strength. And the center, at the end of the day, is responsible for calling out the protections in this 49ers offense. So when that's the case, and in the Super Bowl, the 49ers had 9 unblocked pressures given up to the Chiefs, obviously some of that blame does go to the center. Now, I still remember the Spencer Burford play. That's not on the center. Burford acknowledged responsibility. He didn't block Chris Jones, but there were other protection issues in that game. It's impossible without being in the 49ers meeting room to firmly assign blame for each of those miscues against the Chiefs. But I think the bottom line is the 49ers pass protection needs to be better, and they need to let less free rushers get to Brock Purdy. John Feliciano, if he has to fill in for Jake Brendel, is a player who I believe has enough NFL experience, and the 49ers believe is smart enough to be able to handle the complex cerebral tasks that Shanahan assigns the center position. The quarterback is not the one assigning these protections in this system. It is the center. That's why Alex Mack was such a vital asset for Kyle Shanahan in Cleveland, in Atlanta, and then he signed him to the 49ers for that 2021 season before he retired. So it's very rare, and it's probably very dangerous to have a rookie or an inexperienced player play center, just because of the amount of thinking that has to happen at that position. So if Jake Brendel can't go, then John Feliciano is, I think, the favorite to be at that position, somebody with actual starting experience at center. It is actually pronounced Malik Mustafa. It's not Malik Mustafa. Go talk to Malik Mustafa himself or John Lynch. It's I initially thought it might be Malik Mustafa, but it is Malik Mustafa is the correct pronunciation for the 49ers rookie safety out of Wake Forest. Go for broke. More trivia. The very first NFC Championship game was played at Kezar Stadium in December of 1970. Incidentally, it was also the very last game played at Kezar Stadium before the 49ers moved to Candlestick. Yep, they lost to the Cowboys. And then the next season, the first year of Candlestick, they lost to Dallas again in the playoffs. Divisional round that time. So divisional playoff loss for the 49ers in 1971 after the title game loss in 1970. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. It's been fun. Fun little show here, right? We got to delve into the 49ers salary cap situation. In-season salary cap space is going to be going up here because of the $18 million that will open up with Eric Armstead's post June 1st designation. You could rewind, watch the entire explanation. I'm not going through all that again. I trust that you will not find anything as deep as what we delivered here financially for the 49ers to kind of set the table for some of the maneuverings that might happen over the course of the next couple months. There is never a dull day covering the 49ers. Hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you all very soon.